In 1975, a factory job could buy you a house. Not a mansion, not luxury, just a normal home on a normal street in a normal American town. A man could finish high school, walk into a steel mill, an auto plant, or a machine shop and build a life. He could support a wife, raise children, pay a mortgage, own a car, and retire with dignity. This was not a fantasy. This was the normal life of millions of working-class Americans. Now look at those same towns today. The factory gates are chained. The parking lots are empty. The windows are broken. The houses are boarded up. The main streets are quiet. The young people have left. The old people stayed behind. And the people who built America were told one thing: move on. But what if this was not simply history? What if this was not just the natural movement of the economy? What if America did not lose its factories by accident? What if America gave them away? This is not just a story about jobs. It is a story about betrayal. It is a story about towns that were sacrificed, families that were broken, and a working class that was told its pain was the price of progress. America sold its workers, and now its cities are dying.
For much of the 20th century, American industry was not just an economic system. It was a way of life. In places like Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Gary, Flint, and hundreds of smaller towns across the Midwest, the factory was the center of the world. It shaped the streets. It shaped the schools. It shaped the churches. It shaped the diners, the bars, the baseball teams, the neighborhoods, and the future of every family that lived there. The factory whistle was more than a sound. It was the heartbeat of the town. After World War II, the United States became the factory of the world. American workers built the cars, the steel, the machines, the appliances, the highways, the weapons, and the cities that made the country the most powerful industrial nation on earth. This was the world of Ford, General Motors, U.S. Steel, Bethlehem Steel, Chrysler, Caterpillar, and thousands of smaller companies that most people never heard of, but depended on every day. A man without a college degree could still belong to the middle class. He could work with his hands and still have dignity. He could wear a uniform, punch a clock, and know that his labor mattered. This was not a perfect America. It had inequality, racism, dangerous working conditions, and hard physical labor. But for millions of working-class families, it offered something that feels almost impossible today: stability. In the 1950s, roughly one-third of American workers belonged to unions. In 1979, almost 20 million Americans worked in manufacturing. These were not just statistics. These were lives, paychecks, mortgages, children, retirement plans, communities. A factory job meant more than income. It meant structure. It meant identity. It meant a place in the country. But behind that world, something was changing. Quietly at first, then suddenly. By the late 20th century, American corporations discovered a new logic. They could make more money if they made things somewhere else. Somewhere wages were lower. Somewhere labor was cheaper. Somewhere regulations were weaker. Somewhere workers had less power. The old question used to be, how do we build strong companies and strong communities? The new question became, how do we maximize profit? And once that became the only question, the American factory town was in danger. Factories that had supported communities for generations became numbers on a spreadsheet. Workers became costs. Cities became liabilities. Towns became disposable. Executives called it efficiency. Politicians called it free trade. Economists called it globalization. But in the towns that lost everything, it had another name: abandonment. One of the great turning points came in 1994 when President Bill Clinton signed NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. It was sold as a win for everyone. Cheaper goods, bigger markets, more opportunity, more growth. Politicians promised that open trade would create jobs. They just did not say where. For many American workers, the answer became painfully clear. Jobs moved to Mexico, where wages were far lower. Plants closed, production lines moved. Communities that had depended on manufacturing for decades were told this was simply the new economy. But the real shock came in 2001, when China joined the World Trade Organization. This opened the door for a massive wave of Chinese imports into the American market. Economists later called it the China Shock. Between 2001 and 2011, the United States lost millions of jobs connected to Chinese import competition. Entire regions were hit hard, especially places that depended on manufacturing: Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, West Virginia, the Rust Belt. Take Gary, Indiana. Gary was once one of the symbols of American industrial power. It was built around U.S. steel. It had one of the largest steel plants in the world. In the 1950s, about 180,000 people lived there. It was a working city, a steel city, a city with purpose. Today, Gary feels like a warning. Its population has collapsed. Many buildings are abandoned. Streets that once carried workers to and from the mills now lead past empty lots, decaying houses, and silent churches. The city has become famous not for what it produces, but for what it lost. Gary is not just one unlucky city. Gary is a model of what happened across the industrial Midwest. Youngstown, Ohio. Flint, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan. Camden, New Jersey. Chester, Pennsylvania. Dozens of towns walk the same road. A plant closes. Workers leave. Tax revenue falls. Schools weaken. Houses decay. Businesses shut down. Crime rises. Drugs fill the empty space. The town becomes a memory of itself. And then, the rest of the country looks at these places and asks, what happened here? But the people who live there know exactly what happened. The work left. And when the work left, the meaning left with it. Because when a factory closed, it did not just take jobs with it, it took the future. First, the workers lost their paychecks. Then the diners lost their customers. The local stores lost their business. The schools lost tax money. The houses lost value. The young people left. The churches emptied. The streets got quieter. The drugs arrived. The anger stayed. This is how a town dies. Not always in one dramatic collapse. Sometimes it dies slowly. One closed shop at a time. One abandoned house at a time. One family leaving at a time. To understand this, imagine a man named Mark from Youngstown, Ohio. His father worked in a steel mill for more than 30 years. He retired with a pension. He bought a small boat. He went fishing on weekends. He was not rich, but he had dignity. He had earned his place. Mark followed the same path. He believed the same promise: work hard, stay loyal, provide for your family. Then the layoffs came. Then the plant reduced shifts. Then the plant closed. Mark was in his 30s. He had children. He had a mortgage. He had skills that suddenly seemed useless. The government offered retraining, maybe a few weeks of computer classes, as if that could replace an entire way of life. He took whatever jobs he could find: construction, security, retail, warehouses. Each job paid less than the last. Each job had fewer benefits. Each job carried less dignity. His father had worked in a mill and bought a home. Mark worked multiple jobs and still struggled to survive. And this is the brutal question at the center of the story. What changed? Did Mark work less hard than his father? Was he less loyal, less American, less deserving? Or did the country change the rules and then blame him for losing? This is what deindustrialization really means. It is not just a word in an economics textbook. It is a father who cannot explain to his son why the future disappeared. It is a family sitting at a kitchen table trying to decide which bill can wait. It is a town where the best days are not ahead, but behind. When work disappears, people do not just lose income. They lose identity. A job is more than money. It is routine, it is purpose, it is respect, it is the feeling that you are needed. When that disappears across an entire region, the damage becomes cultural, social, spiritual. This is where the story becomes even darker. In many of the same regions where manufacturing collapsed, deaths of despair rose. Suicide, alcohol-related deaths, drug overdoses, opioids spread through communities that had already been economically broken. The opioid crisis did not happen in a vacuum. It found places where people were already hurting, places where jobs had vanished, places where families were under pressure, places where hope had become fragile. Pharmaceutical companies pushed pills into communities full of pain. But the pain was not only physical, it was economic, it was social, it was generational. A region without work becomes vulnerable. A man without purpose becomes vulnerable. A town without a future becomes vulnerable. And America still struggles to admit that. Instead, people were given lectures. Move, retrain, adapt, learn to code, accept the future. But what does that mean to a 55-year-old steel worker? What does it mean to a town where the schools are failing, the houses are worthless, and the nearest real opportunity is hundreds of miles away? It is easy to talk about progress when you do not have to live in the ruins. The strange thing is that America did not become poor during this period. In many ways, it became richer. The stock market rose, corporate profits grew, executive pay exploded. The biggest companies became more powerful than ever. While factory towns were collapsing, Wall Street was celebrating. While workers were losing pensions, CEOs were receiving bonuses. While communities were being hollowed out, shareholders were being rewarded. And here is the part many people still do not want to say clearly. China did not steal these jobs in the way people imagine. China did not march into Detroit, Pittsburgh, or Youngstown and drag the factories away. American companies moved them. American executives signed the deals. American politicians supported the system. American consumers were trained to expect cheaper products. American workers were left to pay the real price. The old factory town was sacrificed for a cheaper shirt, a cheaper television, a cheaper appliance, a higher stock price, a better quarterly report. From a boardroom, it looked like progress. From the street, it looked like betrayal, because the profits did not disappear. They moved upward. Corporations kept earning. Shareholders were rewarded. Executives received bonuses. Consumers got cheaper goods. But the workers got closed factories. The people who had built the old America were left with ruins. In 1978, the average CEO of a major American company made around 30 times as much as the average worker. By the 21st century, that gap had exploded into hundreds of times more. This is what makes the story so painful. The money did not vanish. The loyalty did. America did not lack wealth. It lacked commitment to the people who had built that wealth. The old social contract was broken. For decades, workers believed that if they gave their labor, their bodies, and their loyalty to a company, the company would give them stability in return. But once the global economy made it profitable to leave, many companies left. They did not just leave buildings behind, they left people behind. And politics did not protect them. No party came out of this clean. Democrats supported free trade deals and promised that retraining would solve the pain. It did not. Republicans defended corporate tax cuts and deregulation, claiming businesses would create jobs. Many did create jobs, just not always in America. For years, both parties spoke the language of growth while ignoring the places where growth had disappeared. Every election cycle, politicians visited factory towns, put on hard hats, gave speeches, promised renewal, and left. The people stayed. This is why the Rust Belt became politically explosive. People were not just angry about economics. They were angry because they felt ignored, mocked, used, forgotten. They were told globalization was good for the country. But they looked around and saw their country disappearing. They were told the economy was growing, but their towns were dying. They were told unemployment was low, but the jobs that replaced factory work did not replace factory life. A warehouse job is not the same as a union steel job. A part-time service job is not the same as a skilled manufacturing career. Gig work is not the same as a pension. Cheap products are not the same as dignity. That is the part the numbers often hide. Economists can say free trade benefits the economy overall, but overall does not sit at a kitchen table. Overall does not lose a house. Overall does not watch a son leave town because there is no future there. Averages can hide suffering. If one man gains a fortune and another loses everything, the average may look fine. But the country is not fine. Today, America is trying to bring some manufacturing back. New investments are being made in chips, batteries, electric vehicles, clean energy, and advanced technology. The CHIPS Act and other industrial policies are part of an attempt to rebuild domestic production. But the new factories are not the old factories. They require different skills. They employ different workers. They often need engineers, technicians, programmers, and specialists. That may help the next generation. But it does not fully repair what happened to the last one. A 55-year-old man from Ohio who spent his life in a steel mill cannot simply become a semiconductor engineer overnight. His children might have a chance, but only if they can afford education, only if their school survived, only if their town still has enough hope left to keep them from leaving or falling apart. That is a lot of ifs. And this is why the ruins of industrial America feel so haunting. An abandoned factory is not just an empty building. It is a monument to a broken promise. It remembers the men and women who walked through the gates before sunrise. It remembers the machines, the smoke, the heat, the noise, the shift changes, the lunch breaks, the union halls, the paychecks, the pride. It remembers a time when work could build a life. The broken windows are not just decay. They are evidence. Evidence of a country that once made things. Evidence of communities that once had purpose. Evidence of workers who believed the system would not abandon them. And then it did. The American dream did not die all at once. It died town by town, factory by factory, layoff by layoff, family by family. It died when workers were told they were too expensive. It died when communities were reduced to costs. It died when corporate profit became more important than national loyalty. It died when politicians promised help but delivered speeches. It died when people who had done everything right were told they had somehow failed. And now, across the Rust Belt, you can still see what remains. Massive brick factories with shattered glass, rail lines covered in weeds, schools with fewer children, churches with fewer families, main streets with more memories than businesses. These places are not empty. They are full of ghosts. The ghost of the worker leaving his shift. The ghost of the father buying his first home. The ghost of the mother shopping downtown. The ghost of the child who thought the town would always be alive. A whole version of America vanished here. And the question is not only what happened, the question is who benefited. Who gained when the factories left? Who gained when wages fell? Who gained when unions weakened? Who gained when production moved overseas? Who gained when towns collapsed but profits rose? Because someone gained and someone paid. The workers paid, their families paid, their towns paid, their children paid, and in many places America is still paying. This story is not about nostalgia. It is not about pretending the past was perfect. It is about asking whether progress that destroys millions of lives deserves to be called progress at all. Was the cheaper product worth the broken town? Was the higher profit margin worth the destroyed family? Was the global supply chain worth the collapse of local communities? Was America really richer if its workers became poorer? These are uncomfortable questions, but abandoned cities are uncomfortable too. Broken families are uncomfortable. Empty factories are uncomfortable. The truth is uncomfortable. America did not simply lose its industrial heart, it traded it. And the people who made that trade rarely had to walk through the ruins. They did not have to live next to the closed plant. They did not have to send their children to the underfunded school. They did not have to watch the main street die. They did not have to explain to a laid-off worker why his loyalty meant nothing. The people who made the decisions moved on. The people who paid the price stayed behind. So when you see an abandoned factory in America, do not see only decay. See a question. What does a country owe to the people who built it? And what happens when it forgets them? Because the factories did not just close. A whole America vanished with them. And now its cities are dying